So, hello and welcome, guys. Cyber Diaries, episode number 35. Another exciting conversation. Today, we are talking with Dhiraj from Matters. So, welcome, Dhiraj.
Thank you so much, Marius, for inviting me.
Yeah, no problem. I think Cyber Diaries is a great platform where we try to highlight and share and talk with people about interesting products, interesting ideas, hear from cybersecurity professionals and founders about their interesting journey. So, you know, jumping straight to the interesting point, Diraj, I wanted to kind of first of all think about, you know, was there an sort of aha moment in your journey, a specific incident or, realization that made you think, we need to build Matters AI? Was there a particular, maybe a data breach, maybe compliance nightmare or customer conversation that kind of in your head crystallized DSPM problem to you?
Right. Yeah, that's a very interesting question because honestly, when I prior to this matters, I was the chief revenue officer for for a cloud security company called PingSafe, which happens to be one of the biggest cybersecurity acquisition that happened in India, acquired by
Hmm.
Sentinel One last year. When I was building cloud security at PingSafe, we were doing largely parameter security, basically ensuring that there is no public facing endpoints, there is no public facing S3 buckets. But we realized that as we go to large enterprises, uh, even if I give you an alert say, as severe, as critical as you have a publicly facing RDS instance, sometimes there are more than one RDS instance which are public facing, or sometimes there are more than one bucket that are public facing. And in an organization which is as big as couple of thousand employees, they have a massive amount of data that is spinning across multiple cloud, multiple uh, you know SaaS applications. And what I've realized is that people still are not able to prioritize how do they fix those alerts. And this is a common term in the cybersecurity that everybody is overworked and they have sleepless nights and they are not able to fix the alerts, even if there are right category of alerts, even they are right alerts.
Yep.
So the question that comes back to me always is that, you are good that you're telling me that I have this particular data store which is publicly facing, but if it would be nice if you can tell me what is inside that data store. And if the data that is inside the data store is sensitive to my business, I will prioritize that. So that additional layer of intelligence on a particular data store is very important for a lot of customers. The second point of our realization, but particularly for me, is I when I was planning to start something like this, I asked so many CISOs and the customers and prospects that I know that what is that one thing that matters to you. Eventually, whatever you do in your day-to-day job and as a cybersecurity professional, what is that one thing that you are trying to protect? Pretty much everybody said that we are doing this all song and dance in our day-to-day job just to protect the data. We buy softwares after softwares to ensure that we are not breached. But if we getting breached, what is that one thing that we are worried about is the data going to the wrong hands. So that gave me a realization that we should build something that gives you that point in time visibility to the customers that this is the sensitive data that is being shared publicly, and there is a fear of getting this exploited by so and so means. So that was one. The second is I also asked this question that why it is that people have not solved it yet. And that basically peeled the onion for me because it is extremely complicated and complex for organization to figure out where all they have data. Because it's not that they have all the data in cloud or they have all the data in on-prem. In today's world, the data is traveling constantly, and you don't have the right visibility where exactly I have the data. Today you have
Yeah.
one sensitive file which is lying on your endpoint laptop, and the same file will go tomorrow to your Google Workspace, or a portion of that data can go to your S3 bucket or in your Confluent PRD document. So you don't know how the data is traveling. And that said, I realized that parameter is blurring. people don't know where their parameter is. So by definition, parameter security is not going to help. So can I build a technology that can solve the overall storytelling from a data point of view? Can data itself, raise a hand and say, "I am sensitive, please protect me"?
Yeah, I think we always talk about in cybersecurity. It's hard to protect something when you don't have a visibility, and visibility has always been a problem. There's memes and posts on LinkedIn where it says how many assets do you have in your program, and then you ask vulnerability managers one assets, IT managers different assets. So getting that visibility, I think, is key. Now, when we talk about data security, kind of data security posture management, I guess, is becoming a sort of a hot category nowadays. And data is always, we needed protection for data. But what do you think fundamentally changed in the last 2-3 years that DSPM is becoming critical? Is it because cloud adoption? Is it because AI, LLMs? Or is it regulatory pressure? Is it something else completely?
Yeah, I think it is multiple things. I don't think so, just one thing. Originally the term DSPM was coined as a precedence to CSPM, because the way cloud security posture management are telling you whether your cloud is configured properly. The original idea of DSPM is to also tell you that is your data stores or all your data inventory is configured properly, and do you know what kind of data you are storing in those data assets. But it has expanded its wings. So if I say this entire category is 5-year old, there are a lot of vendors who started building DSPM just focusing around the cloud. But
Mhm.
but their visibility, because when the technology hits to the customer, it is exactly like when rubber hits the road, the reality. And the reality is that data is not just only in the cloud. Most big businesses, even though they are born in cloud, they still have endpoint laptops. They still have some amount of on-prem. They still have multiple acquisitions that they make where they inherit a lot of data that comes from on-prem world. So you cannot say that this is a silver bullet which only solve the cloud part. So for people to actually look data from a holistic lens, they have to cut across all major channels where the data is originated. So I think that is interesting aspect.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, just jumping into, I guess, the problem space itself. I guess, you positioning Matters AI as sort of AI security engineer for data. Now,
Right.
if you can walk us through a real scenario, what does unmanaged data risk actually look like in a modern organization? Where is the sensitive data hiding that companies don't even know about usually? What you guys uncover during, custom onboarding scenarios?
All right. So that's again very interesting question. And I'll tell you very layman way, like, to one of the largest fintech that we serve today, we met the CISO and we asked this question that, since you are a fintech company and you collect a lot of KYC data for the customer, if
Mhm.
I ask you one simple plain question that, do you know where exactly the uh, UIDI number or the permanent account number of a particular customer resides in your infrastructure, and where all it resides, how much time will it take for you to give me that answer?
Mhm.
The CISO started scratching his head because he has a huge, team, and they're all doing multiple programs from application security to network to firewall and multiple things. But to get this answer, one simple question answered, it is extremely challenging for him. And that gave us an idea that, if we just provide another tool that will give them some sort of visibility will not cut it. They should be able to ask this question in a plain layman fashion, the way they're asking to one of their employees or an engineer, that can you tell me where all do I have credit card information stored across my infrastructure? And you should be able to get that response in few seconds, not in days, not in months. So I think the whole idea of building an AI security engineer is to basically make sure that multiple tools that runs underneath the hood should work together hand in hand like a well-oiled machine and give you what you really need at that point in time.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I think, and I really, I see a lot of in industry we have, there is a hesitancy at one point around AI, and then there is a push towards AI. But I think, you know, wherever we have vast amounts of data, whether it's logs and things like that, AI is great at sifting through data and, and making consistent, predictable decisions, which I think is the power of, AI is not there to replace humans, but it's to empower us to do more with the help of AI. So I think, it's a great way to leverage it. Now, if we go beyond sort of DLP and DSPM, I think, DLP is probably, as you say, DSPM is quite new to the space, but we had data loss prevention tools for years. How do you think fundamentally DSPM is different from where we came before, and why can't traditional tools solve the problem that we have with data security?
Right. So let me just take you 20 years back, when there were only laptops, desktops, and physical servers. DLP was invented primarily because people used to do a lot of standalone applications. So imagine if I have a accounting software running on my laptop or a desktop, and if somebody takes a dump of my entire financial year reports in one pen drive, then I'm lost and I lose major amount of data. So back in those days, blocking access of pen drive, blocking access of CD writing or Bluetooth or even AirDrop was a big thing. And endpoint DLPs have done great job. I have a lot of respect for them doing that. Few years later, there are a lot of people started sharing the data over emails because
Mhm.
they were not able to send via pen drive or send it via flash drive or doing a Bluetooth drop. So people started sending the same amount of data via email in various chunks. So then the email DLPs were introduced. Uh,
Mhm.
then when SaaS and cloud came in picture, people started worrying about how do I handle this, and that's when the new term was coined, which is under the name of SASE or CASB, and then we started seeing visibility of data movement over the SaaS applications or cloud. I would say a lot of these things are great, but they are not data centric per se. They're all designed to block something. They're
Yep.
all basically blocking user access on particular data transfer. But where all of them are lacking is to figure out what data. They don't know what data is I'm blocking. So they typically say, oh, block all or zero trust. I'm not allowing anybody to access anything, or I'm not allowing anybody to send anything outside the network or outside the domain. Then it affected business because business started complaining, saying that, hey, I'm not able to function because the way you're asking us to function in the name of security. There's whatever said and done, if I don't do a business, there is no security required. So
Yeah.
businesses are always overseeding or superseding the requirement of security at some time. So then, because all these uh, DLP products were already in their business and they're closing deals after quarter, and they're getting massive customers on DLP, they thought let's do some sort of patchwork, and they started building regex-based policy engines in their DLP so that they will have some sense of classification done. The problem with regex, in the same example that I gave you from endpoint to email to SaaS and cloud, imagine there is a 10-digit number which starts from say letter 9, 8, 6, and 7 is classified as a mobile number in as per the regex rule that is written on a DLP on a laptop.
Yep.
When the same number is written in an email, but by mistake somebody put a space in between, the regex will classify that as 11 digit. And the moment regex will classify that as 11 digit, there is a separate rule which is written for 11-digit number, which is called as account ID. So then now people are confused whether this number is account ID or this number is a phone number. The problem multiplies when you probably put the same number in a SAS document or a Google Word file, and then it becomes two space, and somebody classify it as 12-digit number, which probably is say a social security number or UIDI number. Now, how can one person have three identity? How can one data has three identity, right? So there is any way people can enforce policies around that? No. And that is the reason why most DLP programs, the success ratio is less than 10%. The accuracy and classification is less than 20% worldwide. And people have invested a lot of human capital Majority of the organizations which are forced by regulators to do data classification, they're still doing manually, and they're applying human power, human forces. They outsource the business to some sort of low density or low cost economies. They outsource into captive centers in different geographies, but yet not able to solve it at machine speed. Every single customer that you talk to, they are talking about data in the size of petabytes, and they are all talking about, can we start from the scratch? Whatever data we had historically, we have no idea, but at least can we start classifying from the future? That is the approach that they are taking when they're doing manual classification. But there are times when you have to classify the historical data also, because the historical data also travels. Your
Yeah.
marketing team will also use the data to send campaigns to the users. Now, all of this was a problem back in those days because there was no AI. There was there was very basic machine learning. There was no compute power available to the users. In today's world, if I have to put the AI to the right use, I can classify 100 terabytes of data in less than a few hours, right? With that machine speed and
Yeah.
with a degree of accuracy up to 99%. So this is all possible because we know how to use the AI to this best potential. We have built a team of very smart engineers who has come from a strong machine learning and maths background. We know exactly how to understand the context of the data, where it is written, what it meant for users. So I think that kind of solves the problem in today's world, and hence DSPM is categorized as a separate new category because by definition, data security posture management, which means what data you have, where you are storing it, and how it is moving, who is accessing it. You should have answers for all these questions. And then we start building policies around it.
Yep. Yeah. Sounds great. Now, since we start talking about AI, so you know, we have companies who are onboarding AI, and they are feeding data potentially in AI models, in RAG systems, LLM applications. You know, how do you think AI is changing the data landscape? What new attack vectors or data exposure risks are emerging that our fellow CISOs aren't really prepared for?
Say, there is one saying that everybody is prepared for external attacks.
Yep.
Whether we talk about the physical defense systems, the countries who are their armies, their navies, their air force, or we talk about the CISOs in an organization. We have this level of maturity in the system today that we are all prepared for external attacks. What we are not prepared for is internal attacks. What if one of the employee goes rogue or
Yep.
lethal and start sharing data in a way that you have no mechanism to catch? That is one. The second is the amount of data that AI itself started generating. The more than 80% of the data that exists today was generated by AI in the last 4 years, right? So you can just imagine the amount of data that are about to introduce into the new world is going to be insane. Now we don't know. We are freely, so like any technology that comes new, people start playing around with it. And initially, people started playing around with AI as well. And it was very late by then they realized that, oh, I am sending sensitive data. I am uploading my medical reports to AI to ask, to basically avoid me going to a doctor. I can just simply upload my blood report and ask questions to AI saying that, hey, can you tell me what medicine should I take?
Yeah.
But is it the right way? Do you even know that you are basically sharing your health data to some servers which are outside the geography, outside the country, or you have no control about it? So how do you build the right amount of guardrails around these systems? How do you exactly know what to share, what not to share? How do you ensure that there is no misuse to it? All of this will start from getting the first visibility layer. Like, you should know what data you are sending first. If you
Yeah.
don't know that, then you're lost.
Yeah. Exactly. Now, I just wanted to touch a bit. You talked a bit about data discovery, and especially I think data discovery at scale when we're talking about the historical data. Is there specific hard challenges in that? How does Matters AI you know do data discovery and classify data across, we're talking now multi-cloud, SaaS, on-prem environments. What makes this technically challenging?
Oh, it is extremely challenging, and I can tell you because I come from a background where I built cloud security company, and the amount of time and effort required to build a perimeter security company versus the amount time and effort required to build a data security company is insanely high.
Yep.
And I'll tell you why. Because each data is very different, and the way data is being used in organizations is also very different. I'll give you some examples. So think of a media and entertainment company, and you're trying to protect a movie script which has not been released yet.
Yep.
So you have to classify something in a way that it is sensitive until the movie is released. But the moment movie is released, it is not sensitive,
Hmm.
which means you have to look at the data. You also have to look at the timestamps of on which day you're classifying it as sensitive and on which day you're not classifying it as sensitive, right?
Yep.
So it is not just one time activity. Most of the companies, they hire big four agencies to do data security impact assessment and data privacy impact assessments and things like that, but those are very manual, questionnaire based, and it does not give you a full visibility, uh, and it eventually becomes a checkbox item.
Yep.
I can also give you the another example to explain the complexity of it. So many companies store data in compressed form. And if your tool goes and starts scanning that compressed file, it simply skips because you have not built the capability how to scan the compressed file.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are more than 200 database softwares that are existing in the market, which are popular. Each database have different types of DB engines. Uh, all of these DB engines work very differently. So if you are building a data security company, you have to ensure that when you are supporting something, you have the absolute clarity in terms of how the data is being stored in this particular database and how will you classify it and how will you label it correctly so that your customer can make some sense out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it is 10x or 100x complex to build a data security company.
Yeah, one can only imagine. Well, what we touched on earlier. I think I always talk to people. I think in cybersecurity, there is that, from experience, there's two programs that are pretty much, the hardest to implement is IAM and DLP, or,
Exactly.
DSPM and other guys. There's always, especially when we talk, I guess we are emerging from the phase when we used to do regex, where, it was completely difficult, full of false positives and so many problems. Now, just leaning on that. So data security kind of is notorious for generating massive amounts of alerts, and that security really, they can't act upon it. So how are we approaching signal to noise problem? How does AI security engineer essentially help you prioritize what actually matters?
Right. So I think this is a multifold problem that you can solve. But for example, if I go into any customer, I say either you give me the access for everything or don't give me the access at all. Which
Mhm.
means I don't want to take you as a customer if you are just giving me a piecemeal and say that just scan this bucket and tell me what data I have inside this. Because I wanted to be a partner to the customer who are truly careful about the data security.
Mhm.
Now, the first thing starts with the visibility. Do I cover the visibility aspects across cloud, SaaS, endpoint, and even on-prem also? I am giving you an example that there were customers that I've done which are into retail and uh, jewelry businesses where we have seen people are storing uh, credit card information in plain text format in an Excel sheet because they were trying to generate an invoice for a customer and there was a long queue. So they said, "Can you give me the credit card? I'll note it down, and as and when the queue settled in, I will." And that data remains there in the local laptop in the point of sale device, right? So there are such incidents. Uh, then, so the idea, the way we try to solve this is, you should have the visibility first. Once you cover all the channels, because there are a lot of players in the market who started their journey in cloud and they do super good in cloud, but they are absolutely blank on SaaS application. They're absolutely blank on on-prem or endpoint devices, and hence, there are chances that you will probably generate false positive because you only have context for one channel, which is cloud, or which is, let's say, on-prem or endpoints. So we thought, if we have to do it right, we have to do it across all major channels where the data is originated. That is the first problem. The second is, am I classifying it accurately? And that is where I think the majority of our investment, the amount of compute that we spend on classifying the data to a degree of 99% accuracy is very important.
Mhm. Yep.
Once I have classification and discovery and classification sorted, the third layer is, can I write the right set of policies? Now, I'll give you a classic example of a policy. There was one customer where I was doing a POC, and I found that there are more than 200 sensitive files in their Google Workspace,
Mhm.
which was being shared publicly by the employees who have left the organization 6 months ago.
Yep.
So this is the classic case where somebody is leaving the organization, they are appending one Google Docs, putting all the data inside that docs, and then making that link anonymous, going to their home, copy pasting that link, and then downloading the data that they should carry back. And there
Yep.
is no visibility. So can you build the right amount of GRC controls by getting the visibility from a platform like us? Right. So that is the thing. Now, when you do the discovery, classification, and policy enforcement right, the amount of alert that you get will automatically reduce, and you will only get the alert which are highly actionable and contextual in nature. And to top it up, we have added one more layer, which is the AI security engineer. So our AI security engineer will act as your L1, L2 engineer. You can ask him that, hey, can you triage or investigate this alert for me? Can you generate the remediation script for me? Can you help me prioritize this alert? What data store should I prioritize? For example, if you get an alert saying that your RDS is publicly exposed, you can actually ask which of this RDS store PII and PCI data, and I should prioritize it. So it will give you an order. Then if you ask, I don't know how to fix it, can you generate a command line or shell script or remediation steps for it? It will help you generate that. So
Yep.
the idea is that every single alert that usually takes 7 to 10 days for a SOC analyst will now take 1 to 2 hours, right from the alert to the fixing. And that's what AI security engineer brings to the table.
Yep. Sounds great. Now, just kind of on a similar vein, I guess, the word governance normally is kind of, it makes developers and business users kind of groan because it often makes roadblocks. Now, how do we enable data security governance that doesn't kill productivity or innovation?
All right. I mean, I got this answer from a very unexpected person in my life. I was
Mhm.
talking to one of the Navy veteran, and he was telling me that when we all recruit as a cadet in the defense forces, we will train to start classification of a document before we even write the first letter on the document. And that is the practice that today enterprises should also have. The problem comes when you have wrong classification of a document, and then you're trying to move the document between the organization, and then tools try to block you in the name of zero trust.
Yep.
If you do the things fundamentally right, like visibility and applying the right label to the document, I don't think so. Cybersecurity is designed to obstruct the business. It is designed to be the business enabler in the
Yep.
right possible way.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think sometimes, we build problems ourselves because, yeah, as you say, if the processes and structure and policies and governance is not built the correct way, it creates friction. And obviously sometimes, yeah, it's just the enforcement of it that becomes problematic. Now, jumping a bit, I guess, into compliance, are you seeing a pull from compliance, requirements, GDPR, whether it's CCPA, NIS2, DORA, from or from actual security incidents? What's your feel, or what's your, from conversations that you have with customers or upcoming customers, what's the driving budget allocation for DSPM tooling?
So it's slightly confusing because every single vendor's website that you visit today, they say that we do it all. And CISOs are really confused. Some of them are dear friend, and but if you look at data security, it is divided in two parts: data privacy and data security.
Mhm.
Data privacy is largely taking consent of a user on particular data,
Yeah.
right? Now, you can build a workflow on your website, you can build a workflow on your CRM software, and then say while entering a data, you say, do I have a consent for this user to use this email ID for marketing purposes or not? But where the regulatory fine, and this is where the confusion is. A lot of customers believe that if I have the consent software in place, I will be immune to any regulatory fines. But that's not the reality.
Yep.
Reality is the fine comes when you violate something, and violation happens when you don't have the visibility. So, for example, if I give my email ID to you, and after 1 year I say, please revoke my email ID from your mailing list, and by then there are already 10 copies of my email ID in different databases, and you delete it from one database, but the other nine still hold it. And 1 week later, I got a marketing email from you. And that is when it creates a matter, or it creates an need for somebody to go to court or go to some legal body saying that, hey, despite of me revoking my consent, I'm still getting marketing emails from this. People don't have the underneath technology to validate that whether this email ID has been redacted or not. So
Yep.
that is the second layer. So hence you need both. You need privacy tool, but you also need data security tool. Data security tool, on the contrary, is extremely compute intensive and it's extremely complex. So uh, the budget and requirement of data security is comparatively very high compared to the budget requirement of a privacy tool.
Mhm.
And that is something which CISOs should be able to explain nicely to their board, because at the end of the day, it is them who is going to make the business case for the requirement of these kind of platforms. So
Yep. Sounds perfect. Now, jumping into what we just discussed, so every CISO I kind of talk to is usually the problem becomes, especially when you go into large enterprises, they're drowning in security tools. So, how did you guys think about and how do you position DSPM in already kind of overcrowded security stack? Does Matters AI, do you guys try to replace existing tools or does it integrate with them? What's the realistic sort of deployment model that, helps people to kind of sift through this, mass?
So, largely the way we look at it is because it is very hard to remove something which is already inside the system. And it is a longer friction and longer sales cycle. What we have realized is that, at the end of the day, we are working in operationalizing companies' data security program, not not hamper it. So what we do is we ensure that we assign the right identity in the name of metadata to the document. So that way we can coexist with the other DLP products also. For example, if I classify a particular document as sensitive and we put that label or a metadata on particular document, now all they have to do is either modify or add a newer set of policy in the DLP saying that if this document has this metadata, then do not allow to be shared externally. Now, if why the current DLPs cannot do it, I'm saying they can do it, but the problem is if I am blocking and classifying both at the same time, it creates a huge amount of customer dissatisfaction. For example, if I'm sending you a 1 GB file or 200 megabyte file over email or over, say, some Slack or some other channel, the DLP will try to classify the same thing in flight, that too with their basic rudimentary regex-based classification engine. And it takes 20 minutes, 30 minutes to read the whole file and try to look for the sensitive data.
Yep.
And sometimes it times out. And when it times out, I don't receive the document. And then I follow up and then I have to log a ticket why it is not happening. And then you have to bypass this. While if the data is classified at rest, and when you're trying to send this, then all DLP has to do is just look for the metadata in that data and say, oh, this is externally shareable, let it go.
Yeah, perfect. Um, Data security, kind of sits at intersection between security, data engineering, potentially compliant teams. From your experience, who actually in the business owns DSPM, and how do you sort of help organizations navigate organizational politics when multiple stakeholders potentially kind of want to protect their territory?
So I think it varies for us also, because some organization, uh, the DPOs control the budget, data privacy officers. Some organizations who are very new and nascent in the journey, they don't have the DPO. It is usually the CISO team that controls everything.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, CISO team does not have the full visibility or the ability to onboard the entire data stores, because that is being covered by DevOps or head of infra or SRE team. So that is where I think the technical competency also come in play, because we should be able to explain it to them that no matter what we do, the data never leaves your organization. We have ensured the way we have architected the platform, everything resides in your environment. We classify locally, and we give you that kind of comfort. Plus, the bunch of security controls and guardrails that we ourselves are adhere to, even though it slows us down as well. Like it slows everybody else down, but we make sure that we take our customers' data security at utmost priority. So once you convince all different stakeholders, the budget largely is controlled by the CISO organization. In very few organizations, I've seen CTO or engineering team also controlling it, because it is a direct impact. In some organizations, particularly, I've seen CFOs are also worried about data security. Why? Because especially, let's say, GDPR or DPDP, which is the recent law passed in India, there is a fine of up to 250 crores, which is approximately about $50 million. So that level of fine was actually written off in their balance sheet as a money. So
Yeah, yeah.
they are worried about that, this is the money that I'm not able to report as a part of my gross profit. So how do I ensure that, mm, you know, you guys are taking care of data nicely? And what is my risk liability? So today, if I go for a cyber insurance, I don't even know what kind of breach liability do I have. Breach liability is always directly proportional to the amount of sensitive record that I store. Do I do I also have to think about data minimization? Because if I'm giving you a loan, or if I'm selling loans, why am I collecting the phone numbers of neighbors? Why am I collecting the phone numbers of employees and colleagues? Because earlier there was no cost to the data or cost to holding the data. So people used to ask all sort of data. But now, because every single email ID, every single phone number that you are storing, it is directly proportional to the breach liability that you have. And hence it is forcing businesses now to ensure that you are doing data minimization as much as possible.
Yeah, perfect. Now, I guess we kind of touched a bit. DSPM is kind of relatively new category. Um, how much do you think your go-to-market is about education versus competing for budget? What's been the most kind of effective channel of getting in front of CISOs and data leaders to kind of talk about the problems they might have?
So I think regulated organizations are extremely paranoid about the fines that are associated to data security. So we are prioritizing the organization that cares about data security, as in the current quarter and the upcoming quarters.
Yep.
But at the same time, uh, we also do a lot of educational programs by participating in various forums, giving them, awareness about why data security is important.
Yep.
And if you look at it from in a longer run, the mission that we are, chasing is, in a way, trying to enforce the idea that you should start thinking data first approach, not parameter first approach, because parameters are no longer limited, or there is no lines defined in parameter. It's the same analogy I always give to my customers, that, would it be worth to build a compound wall around the country, or making the passport of the citizens more strong? And compound wall and the country is treated as infra, and the citizens are treated as data, because data will travel freely for the purpose of businesses.
Yep.
And hence you have to ensure that you should start thinking data first approach. So that is an education that we are anyways we're doing to a lot of customers. But regulated organizations already understand that, and they have already planned budget for this. If not, they're planning for it. So I think that's how we are approaching it.
Okay. Now, I guess just to end, I think we covered the interesting topics. We discussed about the problem, about how data security is becoming, a big problem and how AI is helping and enhancing. Now, where I think nowadays, obviously, technology and things in cybersecurity change so quickly that I think predicting more than a year up front is crazy. But looking into 2026, where do you see data security heading for the next 12 to 24 months? Will DSPM become sort of table stakes, or will become specialized? How will AI continue to reshape this space? And is there both as a threat actor or a defensive tool? So how DSPM is going to change in the near future?
It is going to be a visibility tool for the larger set of customers in the market. But what I'm seeing is that, originally DSPM was talked in context with CNAP tools. So it was like, Gartner coined this term CNAP, and they built that umbrella term under which they included the CSPM, the CWPP, the CIEMs, and also DSPM. I am visualizing that DSPM is already branching it out from the CNAP term, because it is in itself a huge potential, and it is going toward the direction of the other data security players. So I would say the data security as a whole will have a combination of technology like DSPM, database activity monitoring, DLP. All of this will convert as one bubble, and the CNAP will be a separate bubble. Because if I am selling cloud security, I would not uh, risk my deal because I don't have support for a one particular data store that customer asks. And
Yeah.
hence, I would not want to press too hard on in that we do data DSPM. So data DSPM within CNAP is becoming a checkbox item, wherein DSPM as a whole is emerging as a bigger category. Uh, it requires immense amount of trust for customer to be able to share the data, and or to be able to openly onboard a partner that can do data discovery and classification for them. But that uh, because it is becoming de facto for most organizations now, especially due to regulatory fines, uh, customers also don't have any choice. They would rather have a tool do the discovery in an automated way than just filling a questionnaire and be ready with their protection impact assessment, which is very, very rudimentary in that context.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, I think that's pretty much it. I think we covered some interesting topics. I'm going to share some information about Matters and Dhiraj information about those who are willing to learn more. But hopefully it will be interesting points for our audience to learn a bit about data security, about what problems we are solving and how Matters are helping to unravel the data security and sort of data privacy problems that organizations are currently face. So thank you, Dhiraj, for coming along to chat with us.
Thank you so much, Marius, and I hope this is useful for your audience as well. So, thanks a lot.
I'm sure it will be, and obviously, as I say, I'm going to share Dhiraj's information. If you have any questions, if you want to learn more about Matters and how they are differentiating in space of DSPM, please reach out. But in the meantime, this was Cyber Diaries episode 35. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.